And maybe I should introduce him. This is Colonel Al Brunstrom, United States Air Force. We interviewed, I like that, that's good, isn't it? We interviewed him 2-3 months ago. We went through a lot of stuff, and there were some people that wanted to know some other things. So I re-interviewed him, and we're going to talk about some of the other things today.
Thank you.
I need to give you a short, for those of you that weren't here, I won't go through the long itinerary or agenda, but I'm going to tell you a little bit. He enlisted in 1948. Great year, that's when I was born. Thank you. He wasn't part of it, sorry, or he didn't contribute. Okay, he was trained as an aircraft and engine mechanic. He was commissioned and got his wings in 1953. So he went from enlisted, like me, to officer, which I never did that. At Nellis AFB, Air Force Base in Las Vegas, from 56 to 58, he flew support aircraft for the USAF Thunderbirds. If you don't know what are those, it's like, you know, it's really neat. And it met his bride-to-be, Helen, an Air Force nurse. So they were 100% dedicated to us, I guess. They were married and had a daughter named Kathy. She likes mac and cheese. Al says he completed 114.5 combat missions, 250 hours of combat time. I would say he flew 114 sorties and one long trip on the last one.
The other one was a party.
The parky? Sorties and parkies, for those of you that are not in the Air Force, I guess. On April 22, 1966, he was shot down in Hanoi, Vietnam, and ejected from the airplane. As soon as he landed in a rice paddy, he was captured. Alan was held as prisoner of war until his release almost 7 years later. He was reunited with his wife and daughter on Valentine's Day, 1973. Upon his reparation, Alan attended the Air War College at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama, and the following year he completed a business degree with Troy State University. He retired as a colonel in 1978 after 30 years of military service. He has a grandson who currently serves as captain in the Army and is a Black Hawk medical evacuation pilot. I'm not going to give you the list of airplanes he's flying, and these are he's probably sneaked into a couple of others that we don't know about, but the important one is his flight in Vietnam was in an RF-101 Voodoo. He has stars, Legion of Merit, Silver Stars, Legion of Merit, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 2 Bronze Crosses, 2 Purple Hearts, 6 Air Medals, and a POW medal. With that, I'm going to sit down and ask Al some questions and let him tell you what that experience was like. Give me a moment to sit down, please.
I got bad news for you. I got dementia and I don't remember anything past yesterday.
One of the things that Al and I talked about was because when you're in captivity, you are in essentially jail, is what you and I would call a prison. And I was interested in what the guards were like and what the interrogators were like, because my impression is some of them were probably badass, nice way to say it, and some of them were just regular people. So I asked Al, talk to us a little bit about some of your guards and interrogators. You talked to me about nicknames and what they were like. If you please.
Well, we had one that I had right from the start. We called him Monk. He was very quiet, unassuming, a hell of a nice guy. He didn't last long. I guess he was too nice to us for that. But we had others. We had one guy called Mr. Magoo, and I had a roommate then, and we were out at the shower, and something went on, and my roommate laughed, and Mr. Magoo thought he was laughing at him, so he just went like this, got him right in the eye. So when I got back to the room, my roommate saying, "And then you caused me to get a black eye." I says, "I wasn't the one that laughed at him, you did that." They don't take being laughed at very lightly. The rat was the guy that joined us right after I got there, and had him the entire time. He would disappear for a while, and I moved to several different camps, and moved to camp, and shortly after that the rat would show up, and He followed me the whole 7 years, just about.
Now, he was an interrogator.
Interrogator, yes.
And talk to me about interrogation. What was that about?
Well, they all started out with their 4,000 years of glorious history, and I say always unimpeded by progress. And they would talk about their great backdoor neighbor. And my roommate in the interrogation said, yeah, your great backdoor neighbor, China, when they get a little hungry up there, they're going to come down and crush you like a grape and take all your rice. Not the proper response.
Okay. I think that you told me that the interrogations, and you probably just heard that, were more like a propaganda session. Rather than trying to get information from you, they were trying to change you, create.
It was all propaganda, 99% of it, because after 2 weeks, any military information you might have had is obsolete anyway.
That's true. That's true. Okay. I asked if you were imprisoned alone or were you with other people, and you told me you kind of had every category there. You want to explain some of that?
I spent like 9 months by myself, solitary, and during the Hanoi March, which I got shot down in April, we had the Hanoi March in June or July. The big Hanoi raid on the POL system was 29th of June, and I think this was retaliation for it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this guy, Ritter Creighton, was handcuffed to me. We were in pairs. I think there were 66 total of us. And his right hand and my left hand were handcuffed together for the whole ride. And I stayed with him in a two-man cell for 38 months. And I can guarantee you I knew more about him and he knew more about me than any of you know about your wives.
Or probably.
Or husbands.
Or wanted to know. I have a question, because this isn't something I wrote down. Let's just take that group of 66 people. How are they spread out as far as service? Air Force, Marine, Army, and officers versus enlisted?
Well, there was only 3 enlisted over there that were with us. There was a lot of enlisted in the south, but this is all pilots and aircrew from up north.
Okay. So
we only had 3 enlisted men. They were helicopter pilots or helicopter medics. We had 3 of them. And it was about 60%, 65% Air Force, and about 25 to 30% Navy, and a couple of Marines.
Is that me?
Interesting story about Marines.
Wait a minute. How many Marines we got out here? Well, you're not going to have to fight much. There's only a couple. Go ahead.
It's a good story.
Orson Swindle, who many of you will recognize if you think back, he was the dapper gray-haired guy in a black suit that was with Ross Perot all the time when Ross was running for president. But anyway, Orson put out the word that November 10th is Marine Corps birthday. So everybody you talk to that can speak English, that November 10th is National Donut Day in the U.S. And we started this a couple months ahead of time. And guess what happened on November 10th? It wasn't donuts, but it was, what do they call these New Orleans?
Beignets.
Beignet?
Beignet. More or less like that. It was sugar-coated bread. But it was a treat to us at the time.
So you owe the Marines that? Is that what it is?
That's the Marines' contribution.
Okay, talk to me or us about a routine day, which I know they weren't all routine, but one of the questions I had is, what do you do with yourself all day? You get up in the morning, or they get you up if you told me, and how do you spend your time? How do you get through 7 years of day after day after day? I think it's essentially the same thing.
Very simple, twiddle your thumbs. No, we'd get up. Everything went by gongs. They didn't have clocks over there. I don't think I ever saw a clock. They'd have a gong rang early in the morning. That was their get-up time, or reveille. They'd have a gong at lunchtime. Well, we got 2 meals a day, one about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the other mid-afternoon. So they ring the gong for lunchtime. After lunch, they're like the Latins, they have siesta, so they ring the gong for siesta. And later on, they didn't care what you did during siesta, but early on, they'd come around and you must be lying down in your bunk when the gong went off. And you couldn't get up till the gong went off again. Of course, we could always hear them coming because you could hear the keys and they had to open the little trap door to see you. So we did whatever we wanted, and when they showed up, we doing the appropriate thing. But we'd get fed about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, and again about 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so 2 meals a day. And had either rice or bread. The bread was French bread, but the French would never claim it. We always got either rice or bread, and then we got a soup. And the soup was 4 months of cabbage soup, 4 months of pumpkin soup, and 4 months of sewer green soup. Sewer green soup, we called it that because it's a hollow-stemmed plant that grows on the canals. All over Vietnam, there's a lot of canals. They call them clones. And this, whatever the plant was, it grew on the surface of the clones. And they'd go through with a robot and cut it off at water level, go back the next day and do it again. It was rapid growing. It never ceased to amaze us how much they could get from a short area.
Soup.
Oh, well, we never got unboiled water. They were very careful about that. We got boiled water, and they would boil the soup. And sometimes when they dish out the soup, since it came out of these clones, they're used for a lot of things, you know what. A lot of times when you get to the bottom of the bowl, there'd be a little black silt from that accumulated from while the plants were in the clone or the canal.
So he moved ahead and he covered the food, which was a question. Okay, one of the things that was interesting to me, how did you get news? How did you find out what was going on, either in the war or the rest of the world? Because you're totally isolated, you don't have anything.
They thought they had us isolated, but whenever a new guy came in, within hours, everybody in camp knew all the new guys and where they were from and their life history just about. And we got our news from new guys coming in. And unfortunately, they had new guys coming in up till 58. And they had Johnson had his bombing lull. It started out in January of 68 or 69 and extended for about a year. We didn't get any new guys, so we didn't get any news for a while. One of the ways we got news through Hanoi Hannah. We got a daily broadcast, propaganda broadcast, and we found out about the moon landing when they said Neil Armstrong didn't have to walk on the moon to see what the lunar landscape looked like. He could have just flown over North Vietnam. So from that we knew we had to put a man on the moon. So we told them, you guys can't look at that moon anymore, that's our moon. We got our flag up there.
You told me one of the most important things that you wanted from the new guys that come in, one of the most important things of interest to you that they had was what?
We didn't know what was going to happen to us after we got shot down. We found out when we got back that we were on the regular promotion lists, and whenever I was shot down as a new major, so whenever the majors became lieutenant colonels, everybody would know well ahead of time who was on the lieutenant colonel's list. Well, we didn't get much news, but so we'd ask the guys, what's the date of rank of the promotion for major to lieutenant colonel and so on. And we got a lot of information like that from new guys. FNGs, we call them.
Yeah, we know what that means. I find it curious, in the situation you're in, promotion was on your mind. Didn't you have other issues to worry about?
well, not a minor issue on our mind, but it crossed our minds every once in a while, how much pay we getting.
Okay, how did you put together that you were probably going to be going home? What triggered you that indicated, hey, I think things are changing?
Dates get a little foggy, so I don't remember exactly what it was, but they took a couple of hundred of us out of Wallow, the zoo. Heartbreak Hotel was just part of the zoo, a big complex, not the zoo, I guess Camp Unity was that one. That's the part we call the Hanoi Hilton, the big French prison complex over here, and it had a lot of different areas, so I was in about 5 different areas of the prison at one time or another. But, we were up at a small camp on the China border when the peace agreement was coming up. And sometime in September, October, I remember we got a broadcast, I guess, through Hanoi Hannah that Kissinger, Secretary of State, said that peace was at hand. And that, I think, was in October of '72. It didn't come by till January, they finally signed the peace agreement. So when I got back, I asked what happened between when we were told that peace was at hand by Kissinger and when it actually happened. They said that they had come to an agreement on all the terms of the agreement, but when they went to sign it, they were going through the agreement, no, we can't accept this, we can't accept this. So by the time they got through, there wasn't much of anything left of that they were going to do. So that Kissinger went back, talked to Nixon, and said, they're like the Missouri Mule, you got to hit them in the head, get their attention before you can talk to them. So that generated the B-52 raids, Christmas of '72, and that really got their attention. I was not in Hanoi at the time, but the guys that were in Hanoi said at first, when the B-52s came over, everybody, guards would all just find a place to hide out and so on. But later on, after it became a regular event for several days, said as soon as the sirens went off, the guards would all disappear. You didn't see anybody until after the all clear came about.
So the bombing was an indicator to you that we were getting serious.
The bombing told us they just hit the mule with the 2-before.
Describe coming home.
Well, that's probably one of the best days of my life.
I hope. You agree, Kathy?
When I left just the States in December '65, Kathy was 6.5 years old, 5.5 years old. And I got shot down 3 days before her 6th birthday. And my shoot down date was the 22nd of April of '66, and her birthday was the 25th of April. When I came back, I found out Helen confused the dates a lot of times on which was the shoot down date and which was Kathy's birthday, so I'm not sure how she fared on that deal.
Coming home.
Coming home. When they told us we were coming home, well, we had some indication beforehand with Kissinger's pieces at hand, but I started out on this a little bit ago. When we got back, I asked Kissinger why, when peace was at hand in October, it took till January. He said, working through the peace agreement, they would say, well, we can't accept this, we can't accept this. By the time there was nothing left, I think I've mentioned this already, he told Nixon, he says, we've got to hit them with a 2-before, we've got to get their attention, so listen to us. So I brought on the B-52 raids, which ended the war.
Okay, I want to talk about coming home. On the
No.
airplane.
On the airplane, we got on the airplane, and We had a couple of, about 3 flight nurses on each aircraft. There was 3 flights out of Hanoi that first day. I was on the 3rd one. And we had 3 Air Force nurses, all very nice looking. And they had a lot of hugs and kisses. But one of them pulled out a Playboy magazine with a 3-page spread and says, "You guys haven't seen that in a while, have you? How do you like this?" And that wasn't even airbrushed out. It was not natural.
You're off script. Come back over here. I'm more interested when you saw your family.
Oh, forget the family.
Well, we came through we landed at Clark, went from there to Hickam in Hawaii. Admiral Noel Geiler was SINCPAC at the time. He met us at the airplane, took us in for coffee and a cocktail. Got back on the airplane and we got into Travis, and there was just 3 of us that were getting off at Travis. The rest of the people on the flight, there's about 40 POWs on that flight. The rest of them were going to other places back east. So the 3 of us got off. There was 3 staff cars lined up there. Each of the 3 wives were in a different staff car. And I got down to the end of the red carpet, going around along saluting the officials there, and got down to the last man in line, was Chappie James, who became the first 4-star black general. He was a 1-star, I think, at the time. Shaking hands, saluting, shaking hands. The guys got to him, he wouldn't let go of my hand. And he's looking around and made a very, pardon my French, said, "Something's all effed up."
Thank you for that.
What happened, there was 3 staff cars, and Helen happened to be in the 3rd one with Kathy. And the other 2 were B-52 guys that weren't going to come out. They were going to be last off because everything had happened with my day to shoot down, so I was the first one off. And the B-52 guys would follow later. So when the staff car didn't show up, Chappie James was holding on to me, looking around, wondering what's going on. And Helen and Kathy jumped out of the car and came running over. And the 3 of us got in a big hug there on the end of the red carpet. And I don't know how many of you might remember that, but that was a front page AP photo, and I think in every newspaper around the world. So, very happy day.
Great. I'm going to mention a couple of things after the war, and if you have questions or you want to think about questions, I'm going to kind of open it up, but I'm going to spend maybe a minute or 2, a couple of other things. Al and his wife, Heaven, well, that's where she's at, huh? Al and his wife, Helen, went back to Hanoi and some other cities back in 2000 to kind of go through the experience again, I think, and to see what that was like. Number 2, Al's going to be attending the NAM POW 45th anniversary reunion in Frisco, Texas. Starts on August 15th. I don't know if you know this, there's already 135 guys who have signed up to be there, have already registered. And I asked him earlier if he keeps in touch with some of those people, and you do.
Yes. Well, mostly through reunions. I email among some of them, but not that much. But we mostly see each other at reunions. We have 2 reunions. I don't know how many of you heard of the Sante Raid, but the Sante Raiders went into Sante camp I was at for 2 years and 2 months. When we left there before they arrived, didn't leave a forwarding address, unfortunately. And so the Sante Raiders are our heroes because they came in behind enemy lines and tried to get us out. But we'd moved and hadn't left forwarding address, so they missed us. We're having a reunion in August. Kathy and Tom will be going with me to that in Frisco, Texas. So we'll get together with all the, or what are left of the POWs and the Sante Raiders. Should be a great event.
Good for you. Anybody have any questions?
Curious, because we were stationed at Clark from early 1973 to late October 1975. So we were there, and my husband's mission was that he was one of the C9 medical evacuation pilots who were flying you guys back, to Clark.
Okay.
Did you have, and a lot of them were being triaged at Clark before they put them on the 141s and sent them back to the state. Did they keep you at Clark for any period of time at all?
Okay, when we got into Clark, they put us in a bus and took us straight to the hospital.
Yeah.
And they started processing us through there. And I had an outstanding escort that met me at the airplane when I got off the airplane and stayed with me and took me back to Travis and stayed with me at Travis after we got back. So he was with me for quite a while. And when we got into Clark, he had the list of all the places I had to stop at. And of course, we all said our first thing was going to be a steak dinner and ice cream. Got in there and he got a hold of me. We started processing. That was late in the evening. And I didn't get to eat till about 8 o'clock in the morning finally. And he took me through all the processing, and by the morning I'd finished all my processing, was ready to go. And finally got a meal, and that afternoon left. We got in Travis about a week later. One of the guys that came in on the same flight as I did into Travis said when I left, he hadn't even met his doctor. So I had my escort round up the doctor and took very good care of me. So I had outstanding treatment there.
Wow. I ask this because it's one of the most emotional and important opportunities I had in my life was to be a part of Operation Homecoming during that time. And we were mostly wives at that time. We were at the Scott terminal, or we were at the hospital, and we got to meet so many of you and just shake your hand and welcome you home. So I just want to say, in case I might have met you, so I just want to say thank you for your service.
Well, all I can say is we had one hell of a welcome there at Clark. And,
Thank you for sharing that. Question? The question is, were you aware of what he did? He called civil disobedience, but the kind of riots and protests taking place in the United States against the war?
Yes, we were. In fact, if they gave us any news, it was news of the campus riots. That was big on them, showing us how everybody hated the military and hated the U.S. And so they showed us a movie of the campus riots one time. And this particular one was in Oakland, in Berkeley actually. And they had a bunch of protesters were in the street marching up from Oakland into Berkeley into Oakland. And when they got to the Oakland-Berkeley line, you'd have thought it was a bunch of Nazi stormtroopers, because it's a bunch of police, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, chrome helmets on, and they really looked tough. And they came up there, and the protest leader says, okay, this is a peaceful protest, so everybody sit down. So they sat down there, and in just a little bit you hear motorcycles coming. The outlaw motorcycle group, one of my hero groups, they came up on both sides of the line, got off their motorcycles, had chains wrapped around their arms, and just went into the protesters and started beating them with chains. And when they showed us that movie, we were hollering, yay! So I cut the movie off. We were causing too much of a disruption there.
I guess that backfired. Questions?
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Okay. What I want to do is thank Al for his time. Thank everybody out there for their patience and listening. Maybe you learned something there. I would like to thank you for your service.
My daughter was only 6 when I left, coming up on 6, and she was coming up on 13 when I came back. And I can't tell you how proud of her I am and have been for a long time. I haven't told her this often, but she's one of the nicest people I've ever known.
Just keep remembering that.
And she's got a husband that's the same way, so Tom.
Wow, very nice. I was just sitting next to Kathy. She told me she was 39, so something ain't working.
She likes mac and cheese.